who would be known as Admiral Martin King, would have a fleet. This is the time when he is born. And he's coming up through this starvation period. General Buller was born in 1820. These are some of the hardest times on this island of St. Croix, when our ancestors well, you probably know better than I do because I don't have a TV, but they tell me the situation in Gaza and what the Lebanon. Yes, Lebanon. It was anything in the Middle East that you have people starving. Well, I guess this is how our ancestors were, you know, in the early 19th century. I mean, we're starving. And this is when the whipping post gained its popularity. Because, well, some historians will tell us that's why diabetes is so prominent amongst Caribbean people. But I said, well, if that was the case, well, how come it's prominent amongst our people in the United States? Because for a long time, many of our ancestors had survived just thieving sugarcane, breaking sugarcane ingredients we eat. Because if you caught stealing a handful of flour, you could get a dozen lashes on the whipping post in what is now with advanced standards to that extent. And I mean, this is how it works. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm supposed to break now, right? No?
I have a question pertaining to what you have been talking about for the last couple minutes. I wanted to ask, the history of St. Croix's ownership has changed multiple times, and I want to know from your understanding, what do you think some of the influencing cultural norms, how do you think my generation and other generations' understanding of identity has been impacted by our complex history of European control and influence?
If it was anybody else, I would go easy, but she was granddaughter, and I would tell you, humanities is the word you're supposed to be using. So read that, humanities. We spoke earlier about humanities being the local knowledge that all human beings have. Wherever you go, you might refer to it as the people's culture, but it's the humanities. It's how they deal with any and everything that is not science. Only science is universal. Even medicine. You can have some science in some medicines according to somebody professional, but then according to some other people, I used to remember when I had to take castor oil before I go to school, that was part of our humanities, that was part of that's the medicine you have to take before you go to school. Humanity is what we're talking about, and unfortunately, I have to answer Mita's question by saying, that's just it as you implied. Our humanities were erased. And today, regardless of what school you go to the University of Virgin Islands and ask them, well, what are the African humanities? And they would look at you as if you're an idiot. What are you talking about? There's no such thing as African humanities. You know, but this is what it is. Instead of saying, this is my roots and culture, well, these are the humanities of African people. And it varies from different parts of Africa, just like it varies from different parts of the Caribbean. But we have a humanities that are different to them and those who colonize us, and still colonize us to this day. But the humanity, so that the knowledge that is local to us is what we need to know as our humanity. Sorry, I had to do all of that to answer your question.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Mario, I'm honored to have this opportunity to be one of the discussants. And I would like to, if I may, just pick up where Zuma questioned. And thank you, Zuma, for walking that way so I don't walk in the same trap. Because, well, not trap, but I'm actually scratching the word culture right now. I'm putting in humanities. So I will use humanities. So, where Zuma led us to. Having our humanities, having it been impacted by this complex history of Europeans' control and influence, could you please elaborate on what you mean by inside-out cultivation as it refers to the humanities? And in a curriculum, could that inside-out cultivation, or could you give examples of how it is to be applied to science and humanities?
Well, so we could be on the same page. When I speak of inside-out cultivation, them and those of you might not be familiar with the amplified voice in the radio. I speak a lot about inside-out cultivation. And basically, what I'm speaking of is not so much humanity, but the fact that we allow our government to treat us as an inferior people who are unable to do anything for ourselves. And so that's what I refer to as inside-out cultivation, meaning that what we need to do is to grow and develop from the inside, not outside people coming here to give us jobs so we can get butter on our bread. But that if we have the capacity to make all this wealth for all of these different European nations, because we can't make any wealth for ourselves, because that is what our culture continues to say. They just offer us service. The tourism industry, we know how to smile. We know how to play the ass, be fools, and do this, and we say, you know, so we know how to cater to white people. And that's the living that we should have. And we say, no, we don't do that. You know, we are the same level as any northern European people, and it is simply that we have been captured, we have been enslaved, and we have been colonized. And in that, our humanity is destroyed so that we could come to the level of an inferior people with no values, no principles of our own. And the good for our misleaders, what is the governor of the Virgin Islands, the delegate to Congress of the Virgin Islands, all our senators, they all do this to us. They treat us as inferior people, unable to grow and develop from the inside out, so that we can produce something for the rest of the world. But no one has ever, in the past 100 years, dealt with us as equal human beings. And I said the past 100 years because that was when, and we will get to it, talking about our history, a man who used to refer to as Boss Jackson. Do my people do. And he treated us as human beings. And our ancestors reacted to it. And for when we get to know and got Linda here, and my dear sister. Our grandfather, C.R.T. Brown, was the certified and bonded treasurer of the St. Croix Labor Union from its founding in 1915. So that we lived in the same house, and I know a little bit about these things. Where I grew up. And that was the last of us having leaders in this territory who treated us as equal human beings, as opposed to just laborers who could be trained to perform tasks for a superior people. And that's what I mean by inside our congregation.
Thank you for that, Mario. Now, as you speak on the inferior complex versus superior complex, and you started with Sheikh Anta Diop, as he shared with you a message that our history did not begin in chains. I think that there's an area that we struggle with. When we cover from the mountain of the moon to civilization 20,000 years ago as expressed by Manito. And then when you get us to the early 19th century and what we're experiencing under the European powers, often the struggle is, but how did that happen? How is this possible? So if you may, can you speak to something that we often overlook? Because they're not mentioned as one of the 7 flags. But you made it clear the role that the Portuguese played in the division of West and East. Can you speak to that significant event of the Lanzados? Can you share with us anything on the Lanzados to help us get over that struggle, how we went from one people with an identity to a lost people?
I would love to, but I've been speaking publicly on the radio enough times that I am aware of time restriction, and this is the reason that he mentioned that before, but there's a whole lot in this where I mentioned because of time. Well, the Lanzados, Spain and Portugal, what we call Latin people, Hispanic people. This comes from the provinces of Rome, the Roman Empire. So that Hispania was a province of the Roman Empire. Today, Hispania is known as Iberia. It's the peninsula that houses Spain and Portugal. Portugal became a nation because of one, if I could remember the name, Lucius, was a warrior who actually gained independence of Portugal from the Roman Empire. Lusitania. There's some maybe veterans in the World War and they Lusitania was something rather. Lusitania pays tribute to Lucius, the son of Lucius, who actually fought the Roman Empire. We say all this so that you could understand now that Portugal and Spain were literally just a colony of the Roman Empire. When we speak of Hispanic people, we don't realize it, but we are referring to the people who were part of the Hispania that was a province of Rome. Now then, Portugal became, well, a world explorer along with Spain. Why? Because at the time, the 15th century, as anyone in here, I hope, maybe you don't really know, but you would know about the 100 Years' War. There was a 100 Years' War going on where England was trying to colonize France. Hence, the age of exploration that you read in your history books was left to Spain and Portugal. You would know, perhaps from movies, that Australia was populated by British people. How? They were convicts. That did not come from the British people. It's Portugal that started that practice. There is a narrow passage of about 10 miles between what is Gibraltar and Morocco, Europe and Africa. Portugal began this practice of using convicts to settle island nation territories that they were colonizing. Ceuta is a province in Morocco that was populated with Portuguese convicts. This in history is the first example of European people using convicts to colonize other places. So that by the time the British are doing this in Australia, this had already been going on for centuries. It started with the Portuguese. Now then, the 10 islands that we know as Cape Verde, and we know them primarily because they tell us, well, this is where many of the hurricanes that devastate the Caribbean are found, of Cape Verde Island. It's just on the west coast of Africa. At the time, in the middle of the 15th century, the Cape Verde Islands were uninhabited. People didn't live there. The Portuguese took their convicts to populate Cape Verde. They didn't have any women, which is something I should point out to us because a lot of us get confused about it, say, but let me take my time, although I am trying not to take up too much time. They populated the Cape Verde Island with convicts out of their jail. There were no women. So the Portuguese actually invaded West Africa to capture young women, to put them as the mates of the convicts that they had inhabited the Cape Verde Island with. Now, these people who are now the inhabitants of the Cape Verde Island, how were they known in Portugal? The Portuguese word, Carolina, lanzados, the thrown aways. That's what lanzados mean. Now then, would you believe that the medium exchange in West Africa in the middle of the 15th century was cowrie shells? And who knows, it's probably, I see a lady right here with cowrie shells, beautiful cowrie shells around her neck. Cowrie shells was a medium of exchange in West Africa. Guess how fate would have this? Many of the beaches in the 10 islands of the Cape Verde Islands were covered with cowrie shells. So it's like these good-for-nothing lanzados suddenly became millionaires because all they had to do was go to the beach and then pick up cowrie shells and this money. They made a fortune, left the Cape Verde Islands, took into West Africa, made compounds, and black the money. And their claim to fame was instigating problems between communities. We call them tribes. You would get them to go to war. You would find ways to make them go to war. Why is that? Because our ancestors never had prisons. They had no jails. They had no penitentiaries. So when you lost in war, or you were caught in anything that we consider criminal activity, you didn't go to jail. You had to work to give your labor to who was offended. Generally, it's for a period of time. But this is what the Europeans refer to as our ancestors having slavery before them. There were no jails. Your offense didn't have you go to jail. It had you to pay for your offense in labor. And the biggest problem was prisoners of war. Prisoners of war could be bought because they buy in your labor. This is what made the lanzados so infamous in West Africa. This is what they would do. The only thing is that our ancestors didn't know that they were selling our own people into foreign labor perpetually, not for a period of time. But this is chattel enslavement. You immediately become property. You don't have humanities. You don't have religion. You don't have manners. You don't have anything. You are property. You are a thing. And this is what the lanzados were famous for. And I'll try to leave it there because, again, we don't want to be here till tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you. I think you want to have a question. Okay, just